Good morning, everyone. Today, an article drifted into my peripheral vision that was just so abundantly stupid that I just had to take a look at it. But before we get into that, I want to first discuss an update to the previous video I did, as it comes out, again from Decrypt, that Tether has now launched on the Algorand blockchain. And of course, as I mentioned in that previous video, I said that Tether and Bitfinex, the parent company behind the project, can pick up their value and move it around simply as they wish. It's not linked to Ethereum, which is where the majority of the value currently being moved on the Ethereum blockchain is coming from. Stablecoins. But what's interesting here is we also now have a quote from Paolo, who is the CTO of both Bitfinex and Tether. He is a very interesting guy if you follow him on Twitter, but he gave us this quote, stating, "A key strength of Tether is it is underpinned by a rich diversity of different blockchains." Again, Tether does not need a blockchain, it's a centrally issued asset. And our latest collaboration with Algorand leverages the speed and security of Algorand's protocol to give traders fast settlement and reduced counterparty risks in their fiat to digital asset transactions. Now, that is an interesting way to put it, because what really does any of this mean? It leverages the speed and security of Algorand's protocol. Again, it doesn't need Algorand's protocol, and this to me, or this entire quote he's given, just comes across as more marketing than anything else. You can achieve all these things for Tether without a blockchain, as I keep saying, and I'm going to be at risk of repeating myself into the ground with, but I think it needs to be hammered into some people. And even here when it says reduced counterparty risk, well, it's a centrally issued digital asset, so the risk and security ultimately comes down to Tether, the company, not any protocol or blockchain. Tether is the one who is responsible for holding on and maintaining this ledger. But anyway, I just wanted to very quickly bring this up because I think it perfectly goes on to illustrate and back up the points I was making in that previous video. So with that said, on to the next thing today, which is this article entitled "The Decentralized Ride-Sharing Disruptors Taking on Uber." And you know what? I was really hoping that 2018 and 19 would have helped completely flush out the stupidity in this space. But no, it appears we are still going, if not stronger than ever. So let's take a look down and see what is wrong with this, as well as perhaps if it can convince me that we need a blockchain for the ride-sharing ecosystem. So, these days, ride-sharing app Uber seems to be facing criticism from all sides. Yes it does. In California, the legislature has passed the AB5 gig worker law to make companies treat workers as independent contractors instead of full employees. Uber responded with Project Luigi, a scheme to let drivers set their own prices. Okay, that seems very fair. If drivers can set their own prices, then they can either price themselves out of the market, or if they're pricing themselves too low, they will have incentive to lift themselves up because they'll have too much demand. So it sounds like what Uber's trying to go for here is a pure market-driven economy overseen by them. Of course, it says here, critics suggest this will force them into a race to the bottom. Maybe, but markets tend to find a way of balancing themselves out. You have a race to the bottom when there is a centralizing authority that has control over the system, and I don't think Uber are going to be trying to do that per se. In London, Uber lost its license to operate as it was deemed not fit and proper as a license holder. I don't live in London, but I have certainly heard of this story in the news quite a lot. Not so much recently. This is coming from February 2nd, 2020, so I'm not sure what the situation in London is now. But if I recall, they actually lost the license because they were not living up to the standards set by the regulators and expected of them in London, which, is somewhat fair, especially if it's at the risk of the drivers and the riders. Regulations aren't all, bad or evil. There are some which make a lot of sense to have in place. Anyway, scrolling down a bit further, could decentralized ride-sharing apps, with their promise of greater control for drivers and users, topple the incumbent ride-sharing giants like Uber and Lyft? No. No, absolutely not. It's not going to happen. This is really just coming down to a fundamental misunderstanding of what a blockchain is. And whenever I give a speech somewhere, I always start off by explaining exactly what a blockchain is for. Because people make it out to be this really complicated thing, and it's really simple. It is just a way of storing data. Nothing else. Any other phrases you hear around blockchain, like smart contracting, it's independent. You can have smart contracting without blockchains. A blockchain is just a way to store data amongst multiple participants. That's it. So this idea that a blockchain is going to very simply come along and disrupt the entire ride-sharing ecosystem is absolutely baffling to me, and it shows a complete lack of understanding when people actually try and use blockchain in an application like this. Although it seems the company CEO who is building this blockchain disagrees, as she, Firdosh Sheikh, sorry if I'm getting that wrong, writes, "There's a huge potential not only for a decentralized ride-sharing app or a blockchain-based company, but a company who can work more ethically for the betterment of this whole ecosystem." What does that mean? Again, it's the same as we saw with Paolo, but this is even more pretentious in a way, just full of marketing jargon. So let's break this down very simply. Decentralized ride-sharing app, blockchain company. You cannot have a decentralized blockchain that is controlled by a single company. That is not what decentralized means. Yes, your company can have a private blockchain. It's completely pointless. You might as well just have a server because, again, it is just a way of storing data. But the idea that you're mashing the words decentralized and private company together, it's completely oxymoronic. And the fact that Firdosh here seems to think that a blockchain will simply come along and make this whole thing work more ethically for the betterment of the whole ecosystem, how will it do that? It's just a way of storing data. How can it be more ethical? I'm sorry, you do not understand what you're talking about when it comes to these matters. But you know what? Perhaps I'm being too harsh here. I think we should take a look at their own website and see if they have more information that will help convince me that this is a good thing to pursue. So let's head over and let's take a look at her company, Drive. Taxi 3.0. Now, if that isn't an amazing way to start off a pitch of somebody, I don't know what is. How many people have you heard come along and say, our crypto project is blockchain 3.0 or blockchain 2.0? Meanwhile, blockchain 1.0, which they always seem to attribute as being old tech, Bitcoin, is still number one. Probably because they don't understand what a blockchain is or why we need them or where the value of them is actually derived from. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's take a quick look down their website and see if they can convince me further. Why Drive? Drive is a platform developed with the intention of solving the current concerns in the drivers community, alongside enhancing the quality of rides for the customer. What we've created in the Drive ecosystem is a new paradigm of the ride-hailing industry. Again, utter marketing nonsense and jargon. Let's see if there's anything else down here. Much better. Why blockchain? Tell me why you need a blockchain. Transparent environment. Blockchain implementation creates a fully auditable and valid ledger of transactions that is indelible and unforgeable. Thus, transparency in payments and fair calculations can be achieved. Yeah, but let's face it, you can achieve this without a blockchain. Just because you have a blockchain doesn't mean whatever you have is completely public and open. There are plenty of companies with private blockchains. Again, they're stupid as well, but that hides all the data. And there are other companies which have servers which allow people to view the data on those servers. Just think, Wikipedia. All the information on that site is stored on servers. Does exactly the same as what you're saying here, but for some reason you say you need a blockchain to achieve the same thing. Sustainable P2P network. Trust in all-powerful third parties is no longer need, as users can rather deal directly with one another across a secure and distributed and decentralized network. That's ran by you, as a middleman. So this isn't the case either. And by the way, if you think you are not going to be a middleman in this situation and you're going to allow this to be a completely free and fair market, I'm sorry, that is not going to happen. You, as a company, have to abide by regulations and laws in the local areas in which you are operating. If you don't meet the standards set by them, just the same as Uber, you are going to lose a license to operate this business. And I think drivers and riders, when given the option between yourselves and someone such as Uber and Lyft, which are regulated and therefore accountable if something goes wrong, are much more likely to use them. Because it appears that what you are describing here is this system of pure anarchy and free markets, where you are going to take a back seat and the riders and drivers can interact however they want. But you know what? When one of your riders, such as happened with Uber and Lyft by the way, gets assaulted by the driver, or the opposite vice versa, who are they going to come to? The network or the people who run the network? Because you have a company that runs this. They're going to come to you and they are going to shut you down quick. So again, this idea that you're going to have this be decentralized, it's not going to happen. The regulators in these areas are not going to allow you to operate unless you meet those standards. Again, as has happened with Uber in London. Moving on to leveraging smart contracts. Again, this is a thing I talked about earlier. These are not unique things that can only be found in blockchains. You can achieve the exact same effect with traditional servers. So you, by telling me that you need a blockchain in order to do smart contracting, just tells me that you really have no idea what you are attempting to do here, and that you are using a blockchain as a pure marketing strategy in order to secure venture capital investment and funding from investors who also have no idea what a blockchain is. But the madness does not stop here, as when you scroll down to the features, you get no commission. This is a true zero commission platform. Unlike other popular ride-hailing services, our drivers earn what they deserve. You know what? That sounds absolutely fantastic. But you're a company. How are you going to make money? Oh yeah, I did actually read your white paper. It turns out you're going to charge them a subscription just to access the network. You are aware that what you are pitching to people who want to work with you is that they pay you a large sum up front, and you can't even guarantee them any business on your platform. Again, that is absolute madness. Why would anybody do this? And how much is this subscription going to cost? Well, you don't declare it, but let's do a quick calculation here. So let's say an Uber driver earns $30,000 a year. I don't know if that's true, maybe more, maybe less, but 30,000 seems like a reasonable figure to me. And now let us look up how much of this fare is actually taken as a cut by Uber. So this is from the San Francisco Chronicle, how much of your fare goes to Uber and Lyft drivers, and they report that it is around 41%. Now to me, because I have used services like this before, that seems quite large, and this is in the San Francisco Bay Area, so that may be a bit inflated. I have seen figures that are much closer to 20%, which is something which I would expect, and I have from experience seen myself. But for the sake of this, let's take a figure of 25% and meet somewhere in the middle. So we will divide this by 100 to get 1%, and then times this by 25. $7,500. That is what Uber takes from its drivers, approximately, I would say, for working on my network if they earn $30,000 of rides. Are you expecting people to pay $7,500 up front just to use your network and app, which by the way doesn't have any customers on it? I don't know how you're going to secure that. But you know what? Maybe you're doing this monthly, so I don't know, divide by 12. Or are you So are you generally going to expect people to pay, your drivers to pay $625 every single month just to use your network? And you may not like it, but that is just a harsh reality. This is why all these companies use commission-based models. They want people on their platform using it, not locking it off and making it really hard for people to get onto it. Drivers are not going to take the risk and pay you $625 a month upfront just to use your service. They are not going to take that risk when somebody else is offering them business first and then them taking a small cut of that business they have secured for the driver. And by the way, I should add, if you think you are going to lower your price far below $625, then you have another thing coming. Because Uber and Lyft, they are both companies that are hemorrhaging money massively. They are not profitable. And this is what they take, because you as a private company are going to run into all the exact same issues Uber and Lyft are having right now. A blockchain is not going to exempt you from this. And actually, just to illustrate this point a bit further, let's take a look at where Uber spends all of its money. So this is coming from Business Insider, which reports Uber lost $5.2 billion in 3 months. Here is where all that money went, and this was on the 9th of August 2019, so fairly recent. I'm pretty sure they've had more earning reports put out since then, but let's take a look down to see how that money gets spent. Stock-based compensation at $3.9 billion. Driver rewards, almost $300 million. Research and development, just over $3 billion. 2.6 billion of which was from stock-based compensation. General and administrative, 1.6 billion. Sales and marketing, 1.2 billion. Again, something that is very critical to any business if you want to promote yourselves and gain a top spot amongst the big boys. Operations and support, 864 million. Again, I feel I need to tell you, Uber and Lyft are not profitable companies. They've found a niche in the market and they filled it. It's a huge market, but they're not profitable. And if you think you're going to be able to compete with them just because you've stored your data differently in a blockchain, I'm sorry, but you are deluded. You're going to have the exact same costs when you expand, if you expand to their size, and then you're going to need a hell of a lot of people backing you up and dealing with all the issues that arise on your network. Because it's not decentralized. You are running it and you are responsible for it. So with all that said and done, how do you actually make ride-sharing profitable? And I think the answer is driverless vehicles. And honestly, this is why I think companies such as Tesla are so incredibly valuable. They're not just electric cars, they are coming for Uber and Lyft. They have all the data, which puts them years ahead, research and development wise, of what Uber and Lyft are already doing with their own driverless cars. Even more so than Google, I would hazard a guess. And all that data they have accrued, they are by far and away the market leaders when it comes to this. If I was Uber or Lyft, I would be scared about them, because they are certainly your biggest competition right now on the horizon. I mean, we've seen Elon Musk come out at one of his speeches. He said the Tesla Drivers app is now going to have a feature in it where you can rent out your car and actually earn money by putting it onto a network similar to Uber that drives around automatically and goes towards people who call it in order to drive them from A to B. Then pairs with the fact that Tesla itself has said it is planning on having an entire fleet of these cars on standby for ride sharing, then yeah, you have some serious competition on your hands. Cut out the drivers, you can make it not only cheaper for people to ride in self-driving Teslas, but more of that profit can go towards the company or the people who actually rent out these cars. And this is one of the reasons why I think Tesla will eventually become such a behemoth of this space. It's not just cars. It is ride sharing. It is the entire transport market, which Tesla is going after. It just may not be apparent to some people yet. So even though we've seen this huge spike in the stock price of Tesla, it's still very, very small compared to where it could be. And I think that's why it's kind of holding up here for a moment, because there is that speculation of people finally cottoning on as to where this space is going to end up going. Self-driving AI is most certainly a paradigm shift when it comes to ride-sharing and transport markets. Blockchain, on the other hand, is most certainly not. And with that said, thank you very much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed this video. As always, be sure to let me know what you think down below or on Twitter. I do enjoy reading what you have to say and your thoughts on these topics. If you liked this video, be sure to leave a like, and while you're down there, why not also subscribe? And as always, I will see you next time.